We've had our first competition between top North American teams now in the Championship Qualifier event run by Nintendo yesterday. It's a great opportunity to see what top teams are thinking in the new season and try to project where the metagame is going from here, so I came up with a few notes on what we learned from it. Number 1. Tacticooler is meta now. There were very few winning team comps that didn't involve a Tacticooler weapon and center around using that cooler as a team. NZAP85 is seeing more play than it has since Splatoon 2, where on previous patch, the trajectory was for Tri-Nouveau to be the preferred Tacticooler option. This is because the buff to Tacticooler duration and its interaction with special power-up made it so that an NZAP can now farm for cooler fast enough to get it before its own cooler wears off, meaning that the team can basically take every major engagement with a cooler buff. A fantastic example of this can be seen in round 1 between Last Resort and Starburst. Last Resort's game plan of throwing themselves at Starburst repeatedly works because they're not actually getting punished by losing map control before Last Resort has been able to respawn from dying. By the time you've wiped a team with a Tacticooler comp, the first player you splatted is already on the map again. Look at the very last play of the game. Arashi dives the Rainmaker carrier and goes down. Starburst tries to create an opening ahead of the Rainmaker to get the points they need for lead, but 10 seconds later, it's not that Arashi is alive again, it's that Arashi is already in position to follow up on Chara's Reef Slider and splat the Rainmaker. Under normal conditions, Arashi would be on the respawn platform, but at this point he's already relevant to the game again. That time matters in Splatoon. The buff to the Tacticooler matters, but I think another big reason for this shift, and several others we're seeing, is our second main point, which is the fall of the Sloshing Machine. Sloshing Machine isn't completely dead, and probably never will be. We did see Madness choose it in a dominant knockout win against Last Resort on Umami Zones. It has a really interesting effective niche in the game, but a 5-frame nerf to its fire rate is brutal. I saw people all over being like, only 5 frames at 60 frames per second? That's not that much. And at the risk of being too blunt here, y'all who said that don't realize how fast video games are. In Melee, my fastest grounded options as Marth came out in 4 or 5 frames, and that's slow for a top tier character. Falco and Fox have frame 1 options. Most top tiers have a frame 2 option. Peach even has a KO move that comes out in 5 frames. When we're talking about human reaction time and what people are capable of executing, those fractions of seconds really matter. What makes this nerf worse is that the threshold that really matters in Splatoon is how fast your weapon splats someone, and the machine can't do that in one hit. This nerf doubles up on itself even with perfect aim, and it triples up if you don't hit a direct on the first or second shots. That makes it either a 10 or 15 frame nerf to the machine's time to splat. There are weapons in the game that are very close to being able to splat you in just 15 frames. The machine was already slow, with a slosh taking more than 30 frames. It already had trouble with getting chased down by Tetradualies. Adding half the time a Tetradualies player takes to splat you, or more, to its time to splat, really changes its 1v1 matchups. A fire rate nerf also nerfs a weapon's mobility, because it takes longer to paint its feet before it can swim again. I think it's no wonder Umami Zones in particular was the map mode the Sloshing Machine saw play on. It's also an unusually strong Explo map the way it's laid out. But the days of seeing double machine are probably over, and other options are being picked over it for mid-range AoE damage, which we should talk about next. Kyo, North American's best slosher player, a bucket main since long before Splatoon 3, went with the vanilla slosher and saw success on it. It has a solid kit and a solid main weapon, and we've been saying for a while that the vanilla slosher is a good weapon that just happened to be outclassed for this whole time by the machine. Kyo showed that it's still perfectly capable. We also, though, and this is what I'm more excited about, saw 3 different blasters run at top level. I don't think we've seen 3 different blasters get significant competitive use since Splatoon 2, and not a recent Splatoon 2 meta either. There is definitely a place in this game for AoE damage, but the Sloshing Machine had been outcompeting everything else for that niche up until this point in time, and now we're seeing other options get their time to shine. Chara is championing the S-Blast. and while he did definitely have some moments with it at this tournament, it's been out for less than a week, and I fully expect that he'll be much scarier on it in no time. We also saw the Rapid Deco and the Rapid Pro Deco both seeing use in certain niches by anchor players, largely, it seemed, as a counter to Inkjet, which is almost ubiquitous right now with ballpoint being as strong as it is. A lot of teams are even doubling up on Inkjets, with double ballpoint and ballpoint and tri-slosher, so having a weapon that can reliably shoot them out of the sky from long range makes especially the longer ranged blasters more viable. The last note I'd like to highlight from the event was that everyone is still experimenting right now, and that all of these general patterns are subject to change in the next couple of weeks. Last Resort was running much more experimental comps built around the Wiper Deco, S-Blast, and NZAP with Tacticooler, while Starburst was running very conservative, control-oriented comps that they've had a lot of practice with in the past, even bringing back Double Crab a number of times. And then there's Duck Gang, who's running a lot of vanilla Tri-Slosher and building around that Toxic Mist and Extra Inkjet. Nobody has the same idea of how to build a team comp right now. And we're actually seeing cases where teams are putting different strategies up against each other and having to learn and adapt to each other's playstyles more than when the meta was to run the same weapons because they were the only ones that worked. That's a pretty exciting place for the game to be, and it's going to be fun watching it develop as the season progresses.